Welcome. This video is to address the reasons behind why many players are upset about how overpowered the United States is at the 1784 start date. We are going to look at the primary factors that really put the US in a position to become a world superpower, while the rest of the Western Hemisphere appears to never grow as strong. First, we are going to examine the purely intrinsic value of the US's territory as opposed to its neighbors. Upon opening up the simplified terrain map mode, it's clear to see the difference. The US consists mostly of woods, coastline, farmlands, and savanna, while Mexico is plagued by mountains and dry lands, and Brazil consists of mostly marshes and jungles. The woods provide the necessary lumber for ever-expanding settlements, while the savannas and farmlands provide fertile soil, as well as the hills to the west provide a vital source of resources. When looking at the development of the U.S.'s provinces, it's much higher relative to British Canada to the north or South or Central America below. Development is basically the measure of the worth of a province. Manpower shows the population, production shows the amount and worth of goods produced, and administrative shows the amount of taxes accounted for. As you can see, provinces such as Washington, D.C. contain a development of 25. The Hudson Valley contains a development of 23, while areas such as the Mexican Highlands contain a development of 3, the minimum. The Brazilian jungle, 3. The Peruvian coastline, 3 as well. And even much of Canada and its tundra-like environment contains 3. All the factors stem from this initial geographic difference. The economy seen in the United States is uniquely suited and superior to the nations that surround them. The diverse sources of revenue stem from the diverse geography of the United States itself. When looking at the trade goods map mode, it can be seen that the nation is capable of both producing the food required to sustain itself, as well as luxury goods such as tobacco and later cotton. The potential for mining is already present in iron deposits, but as well as coal, oil, and eventually uranium deposits, ready to be unearthed and used as technology advances. The very high production development of many northeastern provinces serves as a reminder of the massive manufacturing potential ready to be capitalized upon as the Industrial Revolution moves across the Atlantic. When viewing the other economies of the Western Hemisphere, it is clear to see that they choose to monopolize on only 1 or 2 agricultural products, such as sugar, cacao, or coffee. The problem with this is that this will eventually stunt their economic growth, as most developed nations come to realize that manufacturing and trade is a superior method of revenue as opposed to just the raw production of resources. But even trade appears to lean in the US's favor. When taking a look at the trade map mode, there are only 2 real routes that go to Europe: the Caribbean and the eastern seaboard. The Caribbean is currently in control of European powers, and will be for the next 100 years or so, while the eastern seaboard is firmly gripped by the United States. The United States has the perfect trinity of possessions. It has both the raw resources to produce goods, it has the manufacturing potential and population to actually produce such goods, as well as finally, it has enough control over the trade routes to actually make money off of such goods. Next is the aspect of culture. The heavy reliance on plantation work and mining led to conflicting demographics in Central and South America. Massive amounts of labor were forcibly transported across the Atlantic to feed sugar plantations, or the local indigenous population was enslaved. In the 13 colonies, only the South was home to large amounts of slave labor, while the rest of the country was home to a similar Western European ancestry. Other nations in the New World are dotted with conflicting people groups. The cohesive cultural makeup led to the U.S.'s ability to assimilate new cultures. This can be seen when viewing the accepted cultures map mode. Also, the U.S.'s national ideas exemplify this, one of which reduces the cost of cultural conversion, as well as cultural acceptance, reducing penalties to unrest, production, and taxes amongst all provinces in the U.S. As can be seen when selecting the culture map mode, areas such as Mexico, Brazil, and the nations of the Andes Mountains are dotted with conflicting culture groups, as opposed to the 2 major culture groups of simply Dixie or American. As a result of this cultural environment, religion was handled very differently in the United States. Most of the nations still maintained a state religion, which caused a great deal of unrest amongst religious minorities, as well as further discouraging the immigration needed to feed a growing nation. One of America's custom traditions completely removes all penalties associated with provinces of a different religion, because the U.S. itself has no national faith. As you can see right here, the freedom of religion idea, negative religious tolerance no longer gives any penalties, and heretic and heathen provinces do not give us any penalty to religious unity. The U.S. is also unique when it comes to its government. Precisely because its economy led to its demographics, there its source of government can be found. Unlike Mexico or Haiti, the United States already had a history of education and self-ruling, all the way back to New England. This can be seen in the unique American Republic, which grants bonuses to stability and cultural acceptance. Other nations in the New World were controlled by an aristocracy that largely left or was executed upon independence. With other nations lacking the necessary capable politicians, it's clear to see why the U.S. has been a notable exception as a stable government compared to the rest of the Western Hemisphere. I heard rumors that the devs are going to centralize the government later, but I'm pretty sure no one will mind. Now I'll look at the U.S.'s opportunities for expansion. When looking at Central and South America, you can easily see that most of the land there is already colonized or is basically uncolonizable. When looking at North America, it's clear to see who has the better starting position. The U.S. has access to the much more arable lands of the Midwest, while the remaining Native American tribes do not stand a chance against the military and technological might of a Western nation. Not only that, but their competition is nothing to worry about. Mexico is to the south, just about to fight their own revolution, and then begin to crumble again and again, so that's out of the way. While Canada is still controlled by the British, who can be seen by their proclamation of 1763, are very slow in their expansion into Native American territory. The U.S., on the other hand, is very clearly going for the native repression policy, which speeds up the colonization of new provinces at the expense of the indigenous inhabitants. Finally, there is the West Coast. No one really owns it, has settled it, or is in a position to properly defend it. With Europe being a minimum of 2 oceans away and the Panama Canal not being built for over another 100 years, it is very likely that the U.S. will settle the rich lands of California, and even take some Mexican territory as well. The U.S. even has one of the most powerful ideas in the game, labeled Empire of Liberty, which grants them a free colonist to aid their manifest destiny. Their final idea, which will be acquired by the time they reach the Pacific, allows them to claim overseas provinces, which is normally impossible. This sets the stage for imperialism. And I'm just going to break character for a second. Their final idea is literally just called Indian removal. Yeah, so there's that. That about wraps things up. It's pretty easy to see why players think the US is too overpowered and unfair to play. Their national ideas and traditions are some of the best in the game for stability and expansion. In addition, the solid lockdown they have on much of American trade, the national legitimacy, cultural and religious toleration bonuses, unique American Republican government, and prime starting position lead to seemingly endless rapid colonial expansion, paired with a frozen wasteland to the north and a desert to the south, and 2 oceans both west and east, basically guaranteeing America superior amongst the crumbling fledgling nations that share the continent they call home.